Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
In this episode, we'll be playing Darksburg, the cooperative roguelike dungeon crawler game where your goal is to escape the medieval city of Darksburg before being overwhelmed by hordes of evil zombies.
So the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Darksburg is currently in full release and available on PC for $20.
So in Darksburg, your primary goal is to complete each procedurally generated stage before being overrun by massive hordes of evil undead. There are many secondary goals in this game as it is a roguelike, such as collecting gems in order to strengthen your character for future runs, or completing runs on higher difficulties to unlock harder content.
Now there are 5 different characters to choose from within Darksburg. There are 3 melee and 2 ranged options. The first of which is Abigail, a Crusader nun that excels at doing AoE damage and dishing out large amounts of crowd control. The next melee we have is Varg. He's a tanky werewolf with the ability to unleash an absolute frenzy of attacks on his enemies. Lastly, for melee we have Runolf, a beefy character who is also the only true support the game actually offers for us. Now when it comes to ranged, on the other hand, we have Rose, who's a high DPS archer and uses her bow and her trusty companion Twig in order to dish out large amounts of single target DPS. Lastly, there's Dr. Dolarusa, a ranged plague doctor that primarily revolves around poisoning zombies and spreading her disease across as large of an area as possible.
Now, the progression system that this game offers revolves around using gems to unlock perks, which passively buff your heroes in different ways. These gems are hidden in chests littered around each stage, or picked up as boss loot at the end of the run. Gold is also acquired in these chests, however, it is really only used for run-specific items such as bandages and healing elixirs.
Also, as part of the progression system, your characters level up during each run, starting at 1 every single time. Each level you gain in your run will reward you with 1 character-specific ability perk. However, though, this can sometimes drastically change how you play and progress for the rest of that run. These perks can give you reduced cooldowns, more damage, or even more charges on your abilities, making them significantly stronger than they previously were. Now the game does offer a difficulty progression mechanic known as ascension levels. These increase the challenge by giving monsters higher stats and giving the player a negative perk, such as starting with less HP or maybe giving the monsters the ability to heal if they don't take damage for a short period of time.
At first, this game was a bit easy on normal mode, to the point where we successfully completed the entire run on our first try. However, the jump from normal to Ascension 1 even felt significantly more difficult, to the point where we died almost immediately. This is where we realized that the progression grind was a bit real. Now, we are all for the love of the grind in these types of games, yet this game only offers about 5 unique stages, if you include the final boss stage. This was a bit of a buzzkill, considering the amount of gems required for a perk of the highest tier took about 1.5 to 2 hours of running around looking for chests and really disregarding the idea of just completing the level. Considering there are 60 total perks to unlock at random, this felt like a bit much, considering some perks were only useful for certain characters.
Yet some characters in Darksburg also felt a bit underpowered compared to the others. Yet this could be a different story if you spent the 70 plus hours it takes to unlock every single perk that's within this game. I mean, personally, we really didn't enjoy the grind too much, so for us, I didn't think that was really going to be an option. Now, the duo player experience felt a bit underwhelming for us, as we felt the game was clearly intended for 4 players. Eventually though, once we decided to give the AI a shot, we added 2 AI characters to complete our party of 4. The gameplay was altogether more smooth and enjoyable once we did this, because they were surprisingly competent and helpful. If you have friends who are willing to play this game with you though, we highly recommend playing with parties of 4 to get the absolute most you can out of the experience of this game.
So now we're going to move into the pros and cons list for this game, starting with the pros. First would be the fact that the artwork and visuals were good, but they weren't anything extraordinary. Next, there were plenty of unlockables. Whether it's perks or skins, if you do have the time, there is something for you to work towards. And last, the gameplay was smooth and there were no bugs that we came across. Considering many games with smaller dev teams tend to have multiple bugs on release, this was a big plus.
So now we're going to move on to the cons section for this game. First off, we have that the game really just felt generic. It didn't really bring anything unique or interesting to the table that the genre doesn't already do. After that, we have that there was very little map variation. It almost felt like you're playing Diablo 3 or something, but you only got Act 1. So next we have that the difficulty spike in this game was just a little too drastic. I mean, on normal, we got to the final boss and we just crapped all over him, quite frankly. And then we came back around on Ascension 1 and he just crapped on us like it was nothing. I mean, he sneezed on us and we died. Not to even mention that the grind that we had to do to even get to him on Ascension 1 was absolutely ridiculous and just not enjoyable whatsoever. So finally we have that the characters felt somewhat unbalanced. I mean, Abigail, for an example, just felt extremely underpowered compared to the other options. And I mean, maybe you could grind like 40 hours and get enough items to balance out the characters, but in the amount of time we had to play this game, that was just not going to be an option.
So when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that we spend on the game. So for this particular game, we would want to get roughly 20 hours of enjoyment out of the $20 that we spend. So after putting 24 hours into this game, we give it 4 out of 10 potatoes.
Yeah, this game was just a very shallow take on the dungeon crawler and roguelike genres. There was really nothing new brought to the table, and the grind that the game offered felt like a grind just for grinding's sake. It did feel like it was polished and not buggy, which is absolutely a great thing though to see from smaller dev teams like this. But the biggest factor for us was the overall minimal content, and that is what really drove our rating down for this game.
Before you guys go, we would like to mention that we do have a Discord channel listed in our description where we play games with people in our community. We always love hearing feedback for new games to make videos on, so feel free to drop by and leave us a suggestion. As always, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.